Become a Leslie's Pro member, and with almost 1,000 locations conveniently located less than 3 miles from your service route, you can quickly get in and out and take care of your customers. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software platform. Listeners of the podcast can try Skimmer for free. Visit my website, swimmingpoollearning.com, and click on the Leslie's Pro and the Skimmer banners to learn more.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. Yeah!
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to talk to you about fire cleanup, or more specifically, cleanup after a fire when there's ash everywhere in the pool. I'll go over some tips on how to clean up the pool and how to remove the ash effectively from a pool. If you're in a fire-prone area, I think you'll find this podcast helpful as you plan your cleanup of the pools on your route. Pool Service Pro. Open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro. I think one thing to note is that the ash that falls into the pool can be of varying micron levels. You can have ash as small as 1 micron all the way up to 100 microns, depending really on the extent of the fire and the extent of the wind and what exactly is burning. If it's a forest fire, of course, you're going to get, ash that's a little bit more larger, maybe like 100 microns or less, 10 to 100 microns. So there's a possibility that you're going to have much finer ash and you're going to have ash that's not quite as fine. The reason I mentioned that, and to give you an idea what a micron rating would be, a D filter will filter down to 3 to 5 microns. Cartridge filter 20 microns, a sand filter about 40 microns. And so if you have the ash particles that are a very small micron, this could be important in your cleanup. And I'll go over that a little bit when you're vacuuming out the ash in the pool. But what the benefit of having the ash, if it's not quite really small microns, is that a vacuum system, finer micron bag can be really helpful in getting some of the ash out of the pool before you go to vacuum the pool. Or if you have the automatic cleaner in the pool, a suction cleaner is going to vacuum up to the filter. So vacuuming out with a fine micron bag with a vacuum system is one way to kind of eliminate some of the ash before you have to vacuum it out. And I think the fine micron bag that I would recommend, I know the bottom feeder has a 57 micron, which I've used before with ash. It's really effective. And then you have the 60 micron bag that Riptide has, and I think that's a pretty effective micron. You may have to stop a few times, of course, with that bag because it's going to get filled up with a little bit of resistance. Once the bag gets coated with the ash, it's not going to let a lot of the water pass through. You can try a 75 micron bag if you want. It's kind of like the in-between bag. You'll get a lot of the ash out, but the finer stuff will go through, and then you have to vacuum that out. So I think if you have a vacuum system, definitely want to use a fine micron bag to get some of the ash out. Your bottom feeder, 57 micron. Riptide 60 micron. I think Hammerhead has a 60 micron bag as well. This would be an effective way to kind of pre-treat the pool by vacuuming out the bulk of the ash. Now, before you even get to cleaning out the pool, you have to wait for things to settle down. A lot of times the wind is the big factor in which way the ash falls. And it's one of those things. We just had 2 big fires in my area. One day the ash was falling pretty steadily in my area. Another fire that was even closer, the ash wasn't even coming anywhere near my house. It was just going the other direction. So it just depends on really which way the wind is blowing really and how much ash you're going to get. Now, something to keep in mind is that you should wait till it settles down to the bottom of the pool. You really can't skim it out. The leaf rake just isn't fine enough. I suppose you can use a sand silt leaf rake, but to me it's just a waste of time. I'll let it settle down to the bottom, or maybe the pool filter will pick some of it up in the skimmer. That's fine. Most of it will settle down to the bottom eventually, and if it's a really bad fire, it's going to be a lot of ash on the bottom of the pool for sure. There's been several of those in my area where the whole pool is black because of the ash, and that's something that can happen depending on the severity of the fire and how close it burns and which way the wind is actually blowing. A little side note, kind of a pet peeve, but this happens a lot, is that you get the pool cleaned up pretty good, and then the landscaper gardener comes with his blowers and they just blow all the ash that's on the deck into the pool. So it looks like you didn't even do anything that week because the next week you get there, the pool is full of ash again and you're like wondering, was there another fire? Did the wind blow again, change direction? But it was the landscaper usually with the relief blowers, they'll blow the ash back into the pool. It's, one of the things that I wouldn't say do it on purpose, but they're not careful and the ash will just end up right back into the pool. So remember and keep in mind that the ash on the deck will eventually find its way into the pool if it's not going to be blown by the wind in a different direction. So it may not be a complete cleanup that day because of the deck itself. I don't think it's worth really hosing down the deck. To me, that's just too much time. It's very time consuming and of course it'll be effective, but you can't do that at all the pools that are hit by the fire. Your main thing is to clean up the pool and try to minimize the amount of ash on the bottom of that pool with your vacuum system the first week, and then with vacuuming the pool the next week. One thing you may notice is that the pool will zero out in chlorine and maybe even get some algae depending on how warm the water is. Sometimes it'll even turn on you because the ash has a lot of particles in there. I mean, there's so much stuff that burns in a forest fire. It could be, anything anywhere near that forest that burns, and it could be animals. It could be whatever you can think of that's burning. That all has to come settle down and get into the pool. If you go on like a Weather Channel site, you'll see the particle they'll have the particle data on what's actually falling in unhealthy air. They measure all this stuff usually in fire-prone areas like my area. So you'll kind of know what kind of particles are falling into the pool. But bottom line, even if you know that, you're going to need to shock the pool because a lot of times the chemistry zeroes out because of all the ash in the pool. It really depends on when you get to that pool and how bad it would be. Sometimes you can't get there for a few days because it's a later pool on your route, and that's when usually you'll find the worst cases. And you really can't go out there when the ash is falling and the air quality is extremely unhealthy. There'll be warnings, and I would say you probably don't want to do too much when it's unhealthy. Besides that, the ash hasn't really settled to the bottom yet, and there's really nothing you can do. Now, would you turn off the pool? I would say sometimes the power is off anyway because they'll cut the power in the wind-prone areas and there's no power to the pool. But it's one of those things where you can't really turn the pool off unless it's really necessary. And that's when there's like the whole pool's black with ash. I would say you would probably are better off with the pool off at that point. That way the filter's not going to get really dirty from all the surface ash being pulled into the skimmer. But in a lot of cases, you're going to get a pretty light dusting of the ash. There's only been a couple times in 25 years where the pools have been covered in ash where they're black, like almost like a black plaster pool. Don't know if you have any of those in your area, but that's kind of what it looks like when it's full of ash. It's just everything turns black and it looks like you can't see the bottom at all because all the ash is there turning the water black. When the sun hits it, there's no light reflecting off the bottom. That's a pretty severe case, and I would say that I mentioned earlier about the micron ratings of the ash. So if you do use your vacuum system, you'll get some of that out, but there's a lot of fine particles in that case, and then you'll have to vacuum the pool. And I would suggest vacuuming the pool to waste. Now here in California, which is kind of weird because you would think we would have a lot of filters at waste mode because we do get a lot of windstorms and fires, but very few filters in my area at least have a waste mode on the filter. Basically what the waste mode is a filter mode where you're going to vacuum out and bypass the filter, and then all the dirty water gets evacuated. Depending on where you have the waste discharge hose at the equipment is where that water is going to be drained to. So that's something to keep in mind. If you have a waste mode, then you can simply vacuum the pool out in that mode and vacuum all the ash out. I wouldn't recommend vacuuming the ash into the filter. So here the problem is we have a lot of cartridge filters and they'll get clogged up pretty fast with all the ash you vacuum up. I mean, you can do it. You can vacuum the pool and then you would take the filter apart and I would definitely clean it and hose it off. That's something that you would do after vacuuming all the ash into a cartridge filter. It would be kind of the next step thing to do. But it's one of those things where if you can avoid doing that, the better. I would consider having a portable pump of some kind, either the Portavac that's like going all out and having the Cadillac of portable filtration systems, or just a portable pump with a discharge on top and an intake in front that you can connect to a hose. And that way you can vacuum out the pool kind of in waste mode because you have a portable pump on the deck. Something that I would recommend because again, you don't want to even vacuum this up into a deep filter because that'll get clogged up pretty fast. Now again, I mentioned you can vacuum this up into the filter if there's no waste mode or if you don't have a portable pump, but you'll have to clean that filter because you can't leave all that ash in there because I mentioned but it has a lot of organic particles in there, and this is not going to be good for the water quality going forward. So if you do have a D filter and you vacuum a lot of ash up in there, then you're going to have to, of course, clean that filter. Sometimes you're not even at the pool when all this is happening, and you get there 4 days later and they have an automatic cleaner. They may have a Hayward Navigator in there, and you'll actually see the tracks of it, the clean plaster parts, and then you have the black parts still where it kind of missed. It's kind of cool because then you can see, where the Navigator kind of fails. But, the other cleaners like the pool cleaner or even the MX cleaners and the Polaris Max or Atlas will do a fine job cleaning the whole pool, and you don't have to worry about them leaving tracks in there. Now, a lot of people wonder, what about a pressure side cleaner? Really, it's just going to blow the ash around. It's not going to really do much. Even with a sand silk bag, it won't capture the ash, and so it's just going to suspend it. I would recommend that if you do have a pressure cleaner and there is ash in the pool, that you turn that pressure cleaner off and leave it off that week so that the ash settles down to the bottom. Then you can vacuum it out with your vacuum. Of course, if you have a portable pump, even better, you can vacuum it out to waste mode. But the pressure cleaner will just kind of stir it up and kind of make a mess and make the pool cloudy. What about a robotic pool cleaner? Well, a lot of them can't filter down that fine. There are some that filter down to 20 microns, and that would be the Dolphin cleaners with the filter inserts. I think those are great. I like the Dolphin cleaners because of their fine filtration, but it has to be down to about 20 microns to be effective. And then you can put the robotic pool cleaner and it can clean the ash out. But most cleaners will filter down to maybe 60 to 100 microns, maybe even worse, 180 microns. And that's not going to be effective on getting the ash out, unfortunately. So the robotic pool cleaner will just usually stir things up, unless you're using a Dolphin cleaner with the fine filter basket, which will filter down to 20 microns. I think it's called the ultra fine filter inserts, and they go inside the basket. They look like a cartridge filter material. That will filter down the ash pretty good. But in most cases, you'll have to just manually vacuum the pool out using your pool hose, using your filter in waste mode, or using a cleanup pump so you can vacuum that out to waste. A lot of times, it's just something that's futile. You'll put the robot in there and it just stirs it all up. Same with the pressure cleaner. Now the suction cleaner, again, I mentioned that it may be running in there during the week, picking up the ash. What that means for you is that you have to take the filter apart and hose it off. Sometimes that's not a bad thing because the suction cleaner pretty much cleaned the whole pool for you, and all you have to do is clean the filter. Now, if it's a really light dusting, you don't have too much ash in the pool, I would say you probably don't need to clean the filter unless you're seeing something weird happening. But of course, if the pool was completely covered in ash and it was black on the bottom, I would consider cleaning the filter when you're at the stop that day to get the ash out of the filter so that you can at least keep the pool more balanced and you don't have all the ash in the filter. And it's going to be something that you should do when the suction cleaner's been working all week long picking up the ash. Again, it's kind of a pool by pool thing. If it's just a light dusting of ash, I really don't worry about it. The more heavy dusting of ash, the more I would recommend cleaning out the filter. There really isn't a lot of options out there for you when it comes to the ash being in the pool. Either you're going to use a vacuum system with a fine micron bag to get a lot of the ash out, and then switch over to your manual vacuum, either vacuuming into the filter and cleaning the filter, or vacuuming with a portable pump or filtration system into a cartridge filter in there. Now, if you have a portable filtration system like the PortaVac or the MiniVac 2 or the Tomcat, I wouldn't recommend using that in filter mode. I would just put that in waste mode and then vacuum all the ash out into an area where you can discharge it. Because that cartridge filter will get pretty full with the ash, it's really not worth you cleaning it. Just go ahead and put that in waste mode so you don't have to take that filter out and clean it. Now, what happens when the customer's calling you because the pool's full of ash and they want you over there right away to clean it up? It's really nothing you can do about it. You're going to treat it just like if it was a wind event in your area. There's really no harm in the ash on the pool. It's not going to damage the plaster in any way. Now, it's going to make it look really ugly, of course, because you have all that ash on there and it's pretty black. But there's really no harm to the plaster. The only harm is, of course, the chemistry in the pool zeroing out and chlorine. Luckily, our fire season here, usually our fire season here is in October through the beginning of the year before summer. So the water is pretty cool and mild, but we had a pretty early fire season this year, and we've had some fires in September, which means that, of course, if the water is warm, and so it's going to turn more in that kind of weather. So just tell the customer that you'll get there later in the week. If they have a cleaner working in there, just let it work, I think. I wouldn't tell them to turn the pool off. It's okay if the suction cleaner picks up all the ash, and that way you can clean the filter. But I would just tell them it's basically one of those things where you can't really get there because all the pools look the same. There really is nothing you can do at that point. And they can't do much except just let the suction cleaner work. And I hope you have a lot of suction cleaners on your pool route. It does make this a lot easier because they'll do a lot of the vacuuming for you during this time. Of course, the walls may have ash on it, so you'll just hook up your vacuum head and then you'll use the cleaner hose and vacuum the rest of the walls, and then you clean the filter. But I wouldn't cave into the customer and run over there to clean up their pool. There really is nothing to worry about, and just reassure them that it's just ash. It's just like if it was on the cement or their driveway. It's not going to stain it. It's just in water, so it looks a lot worse and it looks a lot more hazardous to the pool. But really, I've never had a pool stained with ash before. It's something that comes right off the surface. And just reassure them that you'll be out there as soon as possible and not to worry about any kind of staining as far as that goes. If you're looking for other podcasts I've recorded, you can find those on my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. On that icon, click on that, and you'll have a drop-down menu of 1,500 podcasts I've recorded. If you're looking for the coaching program that I offer, you can find out more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. Real quick, if you're not using pool service software, try Skimmer free for 30 days at getskimmer.com/poolguy. Again, that's getskimmer.com/poolguy. Skimmer, everything you need to run your pool service business all in one app.